This video, we will review your For the Loom presentation specs as well as highlight some good strategies on how to go about compiling your final components for your For the Loom presentation. So what I would like to do first of all is review so this is in Blackboard. I create a folder for you guys. I would like to review your final presentation specs. So let's take a look at that. All right, so due dates are here for each class, so you guys can take a look at that on your own. But I do want to highlight the do's and don'ts and overall overview outline for your presentation. So again, this will be like the final showing. You will be presenting this presentation to the For the Loom staff that you've been meeting with all semester. You'll have just under 5 minutes to present your work. So again, there's not a slide limit, but do make sure that when you're presenting that you can keep things fairly brief. This will also serve as the final visual documentation for your work for this project as well. So please make sure that you keep all that in mind. Again, this is a visual culmination of your creative endeavors and research, and this should clearly showcase and explain each phase of the project, each piece from beginning to end. Again, this is like a corporate level presentation, so this should look professionally designed and should complement your co-branding and visual look. Okay, you should approach this presentation as if we're all seeing it for the first time. We know nothing about this project. Tell us all about it. Again, no slide limit, but do make sure that you keep everything brief and seamless in the way that you present everything. So your project must include, and we'll look at some visual examples in a few minutes, your project must include intro project or the introduction of your project and background. So you will have a title slide with your company logos and your name and course number. And then in the intro, and this can be, this is obviously the title slide is its own slide, and then maybe this is a slide, maybe both of those are on the same slide. I'll leave it up to you. You don't need a slide for each individual hash mark, but you do need to make sure that you're making the visual content digestible that you do put on each of your slides. So in the intro and project background, you'll have the brand persona, the concept strategy. So just kind of remind us what the creative brief was and how you responded to that. And then the project goals, what were the goals of the project? So discuss and show visual and written research. Okay, so you guys have a little bit of the research that you presented in your first pitches, so you can bring some of that with some of that you actually wound up using. You can bring some of that back into the final presentation. Maybe also show us your initial mood board. Be sure to reformat it appropriately to fit in your presentation. Don't just resize it. If you wound up making like a second mood board after you got into it, or like a more of a brand board sorts of things, make sure you include that too. Visual and written examples of research methods and inspiration. So some of your data, some of your facts and figures, and then summarize initial research. Again, if you have anything that's facts and figures and like demographics, target market, that sort of thing, try to limit that, like the more data heavy stuff, to one slide. Just summarize the bits and pieces and the big picture of how this responds visually. And then include any initial concept sketches, notes, process, etc. So essentially, you'll have a section that will probably have a few slides that's dedicated to just the research part of it, right? And then the next, which is the big chunk, is where you will discuss and show strategy of all components. So you will show each final component that you develop for this, and these components are coming directly from your creative brief. So your unique packaging structure, make sure to mock that up and put your final graphics on the packaging. Now, for those of you that are doing physical packaging, we'll just make sure that we take really good quality photos of these that are well lit, and then you can go in and Photoshop and touch those up. And I would Photoshop those and like put those in a background or with the background or an environment. I don't know if I would just have just the products themselves, but that's something that we can talk about together. So your distinctive partnership pairing, talk about who you paired with and why. This one, if you wanted to move up in the slides, you could. That might make a little bit more sense to address in the beginning slides for this piece. But the biggest thing with wherever you put it, the biggest thing with the distinctive partnership pairing is to be sure to be very clear in how both brands are benefiting from this partnership. So some of you guys in your initial research, it was very one side or the other. So make sure that you draw those lines and connect those dots for us and how this comes together in the final pieces. Promotional materials. So that could take the form of signage, magazine, TV, radio ads, social media ads, motion graphics, whatever. But if you have things that can be mocked up, be sure to mock up and show the application of that. Okay. In-store merchandising, be sure to mock up and show the application of the in-store merchandising, whether you have a planogram that you downloaded a mock up and you're going to put your graphics in there, or if you go to an actual store and you're going to Photoshop your work in there, that's okay too. And then special prints and patterns to go along with the partnership. So if you guys are developing special prints and patterns, be sure to show swatches and mock up at least one of the designs onto the garment. And then your web component, that is at minimum a landing page. So be sure to show the flat page and the mock up. If you wind up doing something that is a prototype, be sure to make sure that you record the prototype and you're able to play that for us and show us that demonstration. But at minimum, you should have your digital presence, your landing page, whether it's a website page or whatever digital landing page you have, be sure that you mock that up. And then lastly, you'll summarize your process, however many slides you need to do that. I always think it's great to put like a project outcomes, like what you've learned based on your goals and objectives. And then your very last slide that you will have will be just a thank you slide. Okay, just kind of tying everything together. So about specs, your final deliverables will be a PDF presentation. It would probably be best for you to work in InDesign, but if you want to work in Keynote, PowerPoint, Google Slides, whatever, the final format must be in a PDF. Okay, but you really want to make sure that this presentation is super custom to your final visuals that you generate. So if you design this from scratch in InDesign, you will have more control over what this looks like. Okay, so as far as screen size, again, you will use, if you're working at InDesign, you'll use that 11" by 8.5. Just make sure it's the landscape. Again, whatever you're working in, just make sure you can export it to a PDF. You want to customize the design of your presentation. You want to make sure you have consistency in header and font usage. This is a big one. Label images and figures with subtitles or captions, and be sure to clarify that to your audience. Make sure that everything is clearly labeled and defined. So, for example, if you're not there verbally presenting this in front of us, make sure we can still read through it and look at things and know what is what. Okay. Technical concerns, you guys can read through those on your own. Presentation do's and don'ts. I do want to highlight this. Do not put a ton of text on your slides. Again, be sure that there's enough context that we understand what it is, what we're looking at, but you don't need paragraphs and paragraphs of text on your slides. Anyone would rather have more pages, more slides with a small amount of information than a small number of slides that are hard to read. So, more slides with breathing room for the information is always better. Again, the visuals are the star of the show. Be sure you present those in the best light. Make sure you use good quality, crisp images. And you are selling us this idea. Be sure you're confident in what you're presenting it and how. So the how, obviously the visual application and the attention to detail that you put in your final presentation as well. And this should clearly explain and communicate why is this the best solution and how it serves the project brief. So be sure that you are always pointing back to the project brief, and that when you are pitching this, that you are explaining them, why this is the best solution and how you executed it. So that is the assignment sheet itself. I do want to hop back over to Blackboard, and in your previous student work, there's a folder here. There are a ton of examples, but I do want to go through and kind of show you some really what we were just talking about, how that is applied visually. So I'm going to open this one. Again, you guys have a slightly different creative brief, but I do want you to kind of get an idea. There's your title slide with the name of the project and a little tagline for her campaign, and then the student's name. Also want to make sure that your course number is on there, so please make sure you put that. So this one, again, we've got our logo, we've got the name of the company. So this is kind of their, not their mission statement, but their brand about statement for the project. So for example, for you guys, if you wanted to kind of put your both of your brands here and talk more about your partnership and who and what it is, that would make sense for your project. The persona, so they talk about here, maybe this is where you break down the brand persona for both brands and how they relate to each other and why it's a good solution. And then here we've got the mood board, and then garment swatch colors. So Boxer Briefs is just talking about, for those of you guys particularly that have special garment colors or garment treatments, you want to make sure you mock those up. These are beautiful mock-ups. I think the student purchased those from somewhere, but we can talk about mock-ups if you guys have questions about that. Here's some other examples. So lots of examples in this one. Everything is clearly labeled. And then this was that, they also had this project, they had the girls, you guys will just have the men's, but again, just clearly showcasing each element. And then thinking about the packaging, so clearly showcasing and highlighting a mock-up of the packaging. Everything is there for the Loom logo. We're not doing anything funky with that. We're just putting it on the packaging. So making sure that everything is there, all the verbiage on the packaging makes sense. And then the web presence, mocking up the web presence and the landing page. And then again, there's the flat screens of the web presence and the in-store display. So thinking about the signage and how things will be displayed on the planogram. This is a mock-up, but you could do that through super detailed sketches if you wanted to, or if you wanted to go into a store and photograph things and then Photoshop your work in there, you could do that as well. Okay, and that is the thank you slide. Okay, so I will show you one more example. Let's see. They're all pretty good, but I do want to, let's see, we'll take a look at Bloom. All right, so again, the name of it, student name, tying in the branding from slide 1. Okay, so there's the brand persona, who we are, what we're doing, and why. So for you guys, that'd be more about the brand partnership. Mood board, pattern inspiration, product inspiration. So I do want you to notice that the mood boards are not vertical. They are formatted to the horizontal slide. So please make sure that you don't just slap the vertical mood board on there. So it's going to look crap. Really go back and format it. Patterns. So she actually created these patterns by hand and then photoshopped them in. So showing the process and then what the final digitized patterns look like. And then applying, photoshopping those in, the patterns onto the garments themselves. What the tags would look like. So this little circle here is what the tag would look like, showcasing, highlighting that in the bra as well, showing where the name of the branding is on the product. So thinking about photoshopping things onto the bands of your underwear, etc. Hang tags, so very clear what the hang tags is. So packaging, and this is where these would actually be displayed this way. And she actually mocked this up, thinking about what the signage and the display would look like. And then the landing page, the digital presence, showing what that looks like on desktop and mobile. And then the thank you slide. Okay. All right, and then we will look at one more, and this is from the Breast Cancer Awareness Project. But again, the brand, the name, tagline. Her name's not on this, so please make sure you put your name. So again, talking about the mission or the about. So this is the area where you can talk about your partnerships, showing good quality photography with people wearing the products. Mood board. Packaging, or not packaging, sorry, mock-ups, and this is a really smart way. She shows the model wearing it, and then she shows the breakdown pattern there. Could be clearly labeled. There needs to be like a header on this telling us what we're looking at. And then again, showing those subtle patterns applied there, mocking up the product, the branding onto the product. Thinking about the in-store packaging. I'm really using, like this, she used the tags to do the breast exam. So if you have information on your tags that points back to your campaign, you want to make sure you highlight that. And then the web presence, So she had some social media content. She had a social media campaign she synced up with this as well. In-store, so thinking about what the in-store signage would look like. And then sticker, which was a big part of her campaign, and she talks about that here. And then the thank you slide. So there's a lot of different ways to put this together, but you want to make sure that you're just clearly articulating everything back. So that's where your resources are, and we will stop there, but let me know if you have any questions.